Hello. In this clip from our Justia webinar, Expert Witnesses in Artificial Intelligence, Jim Robinson discusses how AI can be used during the Expert Witnesses research and funding process. If you want to see more Justia videos on law practice and legal marketing, be sure to subscribe to our channel.
We're going to talk just generally about how AI is changing the practice of law, certainly in terms of efficiency in being able to access large data sets, legal writing and drafting. I would imagine that a number of the legal professionals out there have tried to at least get some information that they could use, whether they're writing a letter to their client or trying to summarize an argument, which we'll talk about. Case strategy. Certainly, you can put in your information. You can put in the facts of your case and run it by ChatGPT or Perplexity, and to say, what do you think? Is this something that, based on the research that you can find, is this something worth pursuing? And how best would you do it? What regulations are there that are out there that would make a difference? Discovery preposition, including depositions. Legal research, which is going to be the main focus of this seminar. And then we get into kind of the interesting questions about billable hours. And in that regard, I certainly recommend that you check out some of Justia's other webinars, including this one by Matthew Curvis, called From Billable Hours to Sustainable Income. And he talks about the impact that AI is having on the practice of law, and indeed billable hours, which of course is the lifeblood for us as attorneys. Is if we can do a task now that would have taken us hours in just a few minutes, where does that leave us in terms of billing? Very interesting conclusion, and certainly Matthew in his presentation goes through a number of the tools, some of which we're talking about today, but much more in detail about the various tools that are out there. There are seemingly new AI tools that are popping up all the time. I'm not sure about you guys, but I get hit up on a regular basis to try this or that in terms of new AI tools. But Matthew does a good job in going through a number of these. Another one of the Justia ones that is worth checking out, and again, in these, if you sign up through Justia, that you have access to these. Another one that's excellent is AI in Law, exploring 30 plus game-changing use cases in 60 minutes. By Greg Siskin. Very good seminar as well. So as far as using AI with expert witnesses, we're going to start with really what's at the heart, I think, of using expert witnesses, and that's researching them and to know whether or not we want them, what type of expert that we are going to use, and of course, is there anything out there that is going to trip us up, or importantly, that we can use to discredit the other side. It starts with prompt engineering. There's a number of webinars and sources that talk about prompt engineering, but some of the key points is be clear and specific. You want to focus on the specific question. You don't want to have a broad question like, tell me about this subject matter. You want to make it very clear and specific. You want to break down complex queries. The part that I think is the most difficult for most of us who haven't used a lot of interactive AI tools is knowing you can ask follow-up questions. You're going to hear that repeated a lot during this webinar, is don't be afraid, ask questions, keep breaking them down. Be explicit about your needs, identify who you are, what you're looking for, what type of output that you'd like, use examples, and what you're doing, refine it based on your responses, and say how you want the responses to be given. For example, a plaintiff deposition questions of the defense expert. You can define what your role is. There's a real good acronym that's used that I think is very apropos when you're doing, when you're making prompts. And again, I have this centered around ChatGPT, but this can be used in any of the generative AI, large language models, AI tools, is define what your role is, assign a role, start by defining the role you want the AI to take on that helps AI generate responses that are aligned with your specific expertise or perspectives. You can give an example. You can say, as a construction defect attorney, please explain to me the benefits of having an expert witness testify about causation. You want to give instruction. You want to give input. You want to talk what steps that you want to be taken, the structure of it, how you want your answer organized, what your expectations are. Be explicit. If you want it in terms of a specific length, if you want a detail, if you want just a paragraph that you can drop into a letter or a report. If you're an expert witness, say exactly what you're looking for. And perhaps the most important of all of these steps is the narrowing. And that's where you cannot stop. Once you get your initial results, this isn't a search engine. This isn't running a search for Google where you get one chance at it and that's it. You get a search result to narrow it, to do follow-up questions, especially if there's things that make a difference in a particular part of whatever you're looking for. So here's an example that I ran a search on ChatGPT. Tell me about expert witnesses and artificial intelligence. And it came back with a nice little simple one paragraph response that expert witnesses and artificial intelligence are increasingly intersecting in the legal field where AI is being used to assist expert witnesses evaluate their testimony and even serve as kind of expert witness in certain contexts. Well, that's fine. You know, if you were sitting at a dinner table and you said, what was that whole webinar it was about? It's like, okay, well, this is what they talked about. So that might be fine for your purposes. But if you're going to do something like present a webinar, you might want to make it a little bit more narrow. You want to focus on, you want to say, what aspect are you focused on? What kind of data do you want? Do you want recent? Do you want historical? Do you want a detailed explanation or brief overview? What sources? Is there a particular source that you want AI to focus on? Is there a region or country, region of the country or the world that you want it? Do you want stats? Do you want case studies? Do you want general knowledge? Information for what type of audience? Is it something that somebody who's never heard of artificial intelligence, if you're asking that question, somebody who's never engaged in an expert witness, who doesn't know anything about toxicology? Or is it something that you're going to be asking this of a toxicologist who's made his entire life career based on that study? What terms do you want? Is there anything that needs to be defined? Anything you want to exclude? Do you want alternative perspectives? One of the greatest things that you can do with ChatGPT is once it gets a response, say, now, why is this wrong? Or what would be the opposing side of this? So certainly the idea of narrowing your prompts, of being very specific is important. Is there a specific format? This was one, when I first started using ChatGPT, I had no idea about it. I thought it was just, we're having a conversation and boy, this person kind of seems smart and they're giving information. But this is great. There's a lot of type of information. Again, I'm using ChatGPT as a general large language model. You can use Perplexity or any of the Gemini, any of the ones to generate this type of information. But going back to this question that we asked, tell me about expert witnesses, artificial intelligence. And we got, again, this nice little one paragraph summary, which is fine. You know, it's just, again, if somebody asked, give me a sentence or two, a cocktail party or whatever, that's fine. But if you narrow the search down and you make it more specific, in this case, I said, act as an attorney and provide me 10 points. So we've specified what is happening that you would want a person learning about the subject matter to know. And you say, I expect that these will be detailed enough so these 10 points can be made into a presentation for other legal professionals and expert witnesses. And indeed, the results that came back were much more explicit. They were numbered. They were bullet pointed. And again, I could have done another 10 slides on this where we drilled down on each and every one of these parts of this. The role of expert witnesses and legal professionals, the introduction to AI in the legal field, what AI tools are used by expert witnesses, and so forth. It's just an incredible amount of information just by changing what the prompt is, just by narrowing it, that we went from that one paragraph dinner table conversation to something that you could build an entire presentation about. And as far as the type of output that you might get from something like ChatGPT, if you wanted to express visually, when I asked to provide a visual response in regard to my query, this is what it came up with. Now, this is beyond ridiculously detailed and just about unusable, but you get the idea of what it can be done. And of course, you could refine this. You could say, this is way too detailed and make it so you're just focusing on one aspect. For example, cross-examination of expert witnesses. If you wanted to have that, if you were giving a presentation where you wanted to have a lot of input and a lot of output on what type of results you wanted, you can do things like visual. One of the most fun things I thought was I said, thank you. Now, please turn those points into a stylized PowerPoint presentation that would be given to legal professionals with a blue background for slides. And you can see there at the bottom, it says, okay, it says the updated PowerPoint presentation with more detailed content is ready. You can download it using the link below. And you click on it, and there it is. A blue background, expert witnesses in artificial intelligence, exploring the basics, applications, and legal implications, presented by, insert your name and your firm. Now, I'll tell you that this presentation was not made by using LLM, although I would have been very impressed if it came back with that Saturday Night Live reference. It really would have. Okay, so now we've got a basic idea on what we can do to use AI. Let's put it into practice. The first thing, and indeed, I think it's the most important thing, something we based our white paper on, was about researching expert witnesses. And the first step is learning about the subject matter. So if you had a case, for example, that came in that was involving contamination of drinking water in California, the prompt could be something along this. We have a case involving the alleged contamination of drinking water in California. We need to find an expert witness with specific knowledge regarding safe levels of chemicals in drinking water. We represent the victims. What should I know about the subject matter to be able to judge whether an expert is qualified in the field? Now, again, somebody who does toxicology cases all the time, water contamination cases, may not have to go to this level, but you could imagine having a case come in to your office where it was something that was a little different from what you've practiced on a regular basis, that you might want to get some general information. And indeed, it gave a very nice response for all the different types of things that would be good to know to ask an expert witness, such as the regulatory framework and standards of the Safe Drinking Water Act, maximum contaminant levels, toxicology and risk assessment, and so forth. And you get an idea that you could pretty quickly get up to speed on what are the types of things that I should know going into asking an expert witness. And again, if we were going to take that information, going back a slide here, that they said these are things that you ought to know about this, about regulatory framework and so forth. Now, our next step, again, to make it easy for us, is to ask ChatGPT, or again, any of the LLMs, to now act as an attorney about the questions a potential expert witness should know, and provide me these questions on the different subject matters. So it provided it to me. And essentially, it's not too dissimilar from the results of things you should know, just only phrased as questions. Again, this is a very good starting point for learning the subject matter about this. Now, with that being said, that it's a very good place to go to learn about the subject matter, keep in mind, and will be a refrain throughout this presentation, and anytime anybody talks about artificial intelligence and large language model generative AI, ChatGPT and indeed all of the LLMs miss key information. One of the expert witnesses queried about information for sciatic nerves, and he said that he queried what is the anatomy of the sciatic nerve relative to prima formis, and he reported back. He said, of note, the Bible on the Anatomy of Peripheral Nerves is a 1978 publication, some 1,600 pages, called Nerve and Nerve Injuries by Sir Sidman Sutherland, very esteemed Australian knighted scientist, anatomist, and it wasn't referenced in the result. He said, I strongly suspect that the text has not been digitized and not in the cyber world yet. So it misses a lot. If you're going to miss the Bible of nerves in this 1978 study, then you've got to realize that there may be a lot out there that's not found by a large language model, generative AI, like ChatGPT. So as far as finding expert witnesses, we asked them, where can we find expert witnesses? And it didn't supply them. It just told us where to look for them. And very nice of them to call out to go to JurisPro to find expert witnesses among Seek and HG experts and others. So as far as finding experts, not the best place to go. But it did help with finding out, do we want them? So once we found an expert witness, somebody, we learned the subject matter, we found somebody, him or her, who might be able to help us in the case. Key question is do we want them? And conversely, what dirt can we dig up on the opposing expert? And you may question about, well, is this really necessary? Well, this is a study that I love to reference, where it's 2.6 million job applicants verified average, which specializes in jobs screening and selection, revealed that 44% lied about their work experience, 23% fabricated credentials or licenses, and 41% lied about their education. Those are pretty big numbers. You got to think, there's no way that happens to expert witnesses, except it does. And I used to collect these. Police expert lied about their credentials. NASCAR accuses medical expert witnesses of false credentials. Expert witness accused of lying. Expert who lied about his credentials sentenced. And this was my favorite. That Major League Baseball, this was a few years ago, but their medical advisor, one they brought in to talk about steroids, he falsified his resume. So certainly, if you cannot take the expert's word for it, and if the expert gives you their CV or something, you got to question, you got to do your own research. And it does matter. The courts have said, this is a case out of Ohio, says when a defendant prepares for trial, he and his attorney must research the expert witness. So in this case, the state versus O'Neill, a motion for a new trial was denied, and because the attorney failed to research an expert witness, and the defendant in that case was sentenced to 49 years in jail. So there's real consequences for not researching your expert witness. So as far as how ChatGPT does in its job, in our hypothetical toxicology case, we have found an expert by the name of Nachman Bratbauer. Nachman Bratbauer is an actual expert who is a toxicologist. And so I did a query into ChatGPT. I said, act as an opposing counsel and find me cross-examine material on Nachman Bratbauer. And it says, to prepare for cross-examination of Nachman Bratbauer, who is a well-known expert in toxicology and internal medicine, you want to focus on several areas that could potentially challenge his credibility, methodology, or opinions. Here's a step-by-step approach to finding cross-examine material. So this kind of gave a step-by-step to go through and where to look about this, to look for things. Now, a lot of this is pretty basic regarding that. But you can do, again, your follow-up questions to say, all right, what questions should I ask about his qualifications, about his prior testimonies and publications? One of the places that is fertile for ground to find information about expert witnesses is through websites, of course. And this is one of my favorites, that there was a case involving a bicycle accident where one of the experts talked about the opposing expert, and he said, the expert opined again that the only entity at fault in the accident was the bike industry. The fact that the cyclist was on the double yellow line going 41 miles per hour in a 25 mile per hour speed zone dressed in dark clothing without a headlight at 1:30 in the morning had no bearing on the causal factors of the accident. So again, this is one expert trash talking the other. So what did that expert do in retaliation? It posted his college transcript. And I don't know how well you can see this on here, but we'll highlight some of that, and you can see the number of Ds on the page. And I submit that if the Lakers played this good a D, they would have made it to the playoffs and farther along towards the championship. Thank you. Thank you very much. So going back to the website, and we're going to use Perplexity to do some research about this website. I asked Perplexity, I said, can you research Nachman Bratbauer's website? And again, we certainly can do this on our own. We could click through and look through it. But I was curious to see what Perplexity would bring back as far as information. So it did a nice summary. It's got some drill downs on this to show it. It's got a picture of Nachman Bratbauer. And it has a link, as we said. It's got sources back to Nachman Bratbauer's website. So pretty basic here, a lot of blank space on the screen. And if one were to go to this, you have to drill down to get some more information about Nachman Bratbauer. But I'm curious to know what were some of Nachman Bratbauer's old versions of his website I asked, I said, can you show me old versions of Nachman Bratbauer's website? And this is important. If an expert at one time said that he or she had a certain credential, that they had some experience on one version of their website, and suddenly it's gone, that certainly could raise suspicion. Why is that? So I asked ChatGPT, can you show me old versions of this website? And ChatGPT replied, I don't have direct access to archived versions of websites, so the ability to browse the web in real time, including assessing historical web data such as old versions of websites. However, you can find access to archived versions of websites yourself by using the Wayback Machine, named after the Rocky and Bullwinkle series, a service provided by Internet Archive. And if you're not familiar with Internet Archive, you should be. It is a digital archive of the web. It was created back in 2001. It touts that it has 866 billion, with a B, web pages saved over time. Now, it's got to be made clear, this is not every single page of every single website, but you'll be amazed. In fact, we have a case right now that we're working on that it really did make a difference, that on one page, on one version of their web page, they said that they had never been sued before, and then that got taken off in their subsequent versions of their website. So we were able to go back and to see when they changed that, to get an idea, when did they take that off? So it's certainly valuable information. So in terms of researching Nachman Bratbauer, we go to Internet Archive and we run a search for his website, nachmanbratbauer.net, and we find out that it's been saved 12 times since 2012. So again, this isn't every page of his website. It's not indexed every single time, but there certainly is a number of them. And you go, and this is an old version of what his website looked like. You can see it's much more detailed than the other. It's got a picture of him with Aaron Brockovich. He was the toxicologist in the Aaron Brockovich case there. And again, it's different information that's currently on his website. You can compare to, that's what his website looks like now. That's what it used to look like. And of course, we also have the quote from Aaron Brockovich who says, I wish the world had more Nachman Bratbauers. And of course, don't we all? So to go back and talk just a brief moment about the Wayback Machine, again, one of my favorite things to do is to show that if you're curious to see what Google looked like, take me back to what Google looked like. Here's all the different versions of Google's website, including their first one that they have archived back from 1998. This is what Google's first web page looked like. And it says on here, Google is a research in progress, and there are only a few of us, so expect some downtime and malfunctions. And of course, I'm thinking, isn't that true of all of us? So now if we turn to the expert's background to do some research on that and how we can use AI to do that, first, again, to talk about the importance of doing research on expert witnesses, especially when we can, to use the AI tools. There's a case in the spring of 2007, a federal judge in New Orleans threw out a victory by Merck in one of its Vioxx cases filed against it because Merck's primary expert witness had stated in trial that he was board certified in internal medicine and cardiovascular disease when in fact, both of his certifications had lapsed. So of course, back in 2007, ChatGPT did not exist. Had it done so, we could have run a search and says, tell me whether Barry Kennedy Rayburn, the expert in the Vioxx case, is certified in cardiovascular disease and internal medicine. And ChatGPT writes back very confidently, yes, Dr. Barry Kennedy Rayburn is certified in both cardiovascular disease and internal medicine. He has extensive experience in these fields, having graduated from Johns Hopkins and so forth. He is licensed to practice in Alabama and specializes in internal medicine and focus on cardiovascular disease. So even had ChatGPT existed back then and you'd run this search, you would have been wrong. Because if you go to the site to check out on his certifications, and indeed ChatGPT makes it clear at the bottom, ChatGPT can make mistakes, so check important information. You had to check, because if you went to the American Board of Internal Medicine, you would have been able to see what this expert's qualifications, and you could see that there was a 3-year gap in his cardiovascular disease certification. For his internal medicine, there was a 6-year gap. The entire case was lost because they did not go to this page to check it out, which did exist back in 2007. They had the ability to access this, and had one just relied on ChatGPT or another large language model to say, is this guy certified? You would have been wrong. You would have lost this case. And indeed, there's a whole line of cases. It comes out fairly regularly now about attorneys are sanctioned for using ChatGPT for legal briefs or for misquoting. In this particular case, the judge fined the lawyers $5,000. They found the lawyers had added in bad faith and made acts of conscious avoidance of false and misleading statements in court. And the attorney, in his defense, said, we made a good faith mistake in failing to believe that a piece of technology could be making up cases out of whole cloth. That was their defense. And of course, the judge said, and go ahead and pay your $5,000 for relying on ChatGPT when it had made up cases. So in terms of, is it possible that expert witnesses are getting burned? The whole idea of hallucinating, which refers to instances where an AI model generates content that's not based on input or data, there's a whole host of different examples that the experts had given to me. In this particular case, the expert said, in the course of reviewing the case, I wondered whether psychotherapists who themselves have been traumatized could effectively treat a client who had the same trauma. Publicly available databases seem to offer very little in actual studies, so I decided to ask ChatGPT whether there was a peer-reviewed study that would address that question. So confidently, the ChatGPT came back with this very official-looking site. This Kornreich study from 2017, the therapist with histories of trauma, a review of commentary on empirical literature, and the expert reported, Dr. David Hartman, a neuropsychologist, said, I'm not sure about that. And he said, are you sure that this is what it is? Because I can't find it in that journal. And it wrote back and it said, yes, I can confirm that the reference you provided exists. The article Therapist with History of Trauma, a review of commentary on empirical literature, does appear in that. And again, the expert pressed the ChatGPT, the narrowing, the response, the going back and trying to refine it, and said, I've looked and it doesn't exist. And finally, ChatGPT came back with this. I apologize for the error in my previous response. After double checking, I was unable to find the article. It's possible the article was never published. I mean, that's big. So the trust as far as using ChatGPT to providing you specific information, subject-based information, has got to be looked on with just a start. You've got to do your own sourcing. Another expert witness, one of our entertainment experts, talked about that there's a whole string of cases, and indeed the use of AI leading to litigation, where banks have relied on AI technology rather than doing traditional banking activities where fraud had been provided. And she gave the example, Catherine Arnold gave the example of how Tom Hanks says an AI version of him was used in a Dell plant ad without his consent. And indeed, it's a whole new area that's getting in, of course, with likenesses, but even with voices. Who has control of that? If someone generates a voice that sounds like Tom Hanks or Morgan Freeman or somebody else, do they own that content? So indeed, it's a brave new world as far as the use of AI in copyright and trademark law is concerned.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on law practice and legal marketing. See you in our next clip.